Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Do you ever feel a little bit like the relationship of the United States with the rest of the world is a bit like the relationship of a rich but abusive, drunk family member with the rest of the family? I mean, like in an abusive family situation, there's just so many things that everybody agrees to not talk about. So many things that everyone just agrees to pretend are normal. They agree to overlook. They agree to sweep under the carpet or just, pretend they don't remember. And, every time there's assurances that, it was a one-off, it's not going to happen again, and the abuser is going to change. And no one wants to be the one who will bring up the incessant incidences of brutality and wrongdoing and abuse and then have to catch hell for it. Everyone tiptoes around just praying that they won't incur the wrath of this malicious alcoholic parent or sibling. So they all collectively, in an abusive family, the family members, or in this case, the world towards the United States, everyone agrees to continue to flatter, to pander, to justify, to make excuses, to exonerate the abusive family member, and to publicly declare, really, actually, he's a great guy. But, there's just too much. There's just too many things. If we're being honest, Hiroshima and Nagasaki should have been enough to irreparably discredit the United States and banish them permanently from having a voice internationally. But it didn't, obviously. And every U.S. president for the last 40 years has basically flat out refused to apologize or to even acknowledge that it was an unspeakable war crime, killing some 250,000 innocent people in seconds. George W. Bush literally said, let's forget that and move forward. How about let's not? But dropping atomic bombs and being the only country to ever do so wasn't the beginning of America's crimes. And it certainly wasn't the end, not by a long shot. But somehow we all agreed to overlook it. And they have been continuously committing heinous crimes ever since and requiring us to continue overlooking them. No matter what they do, we are supposed to stick to the narrative about how morally superior they are, how upright, how humane, how decent, how enlightened they are. We're all supposed to continue reciting America's virtues while they have us in a chokehold and are beating us bloody. I'm sorry, but when do we hit rock bottom with this abusive relationship? The dirty wars in Latin America, the coups, the assassinations, the covert destabilizations in Africa, in Asia, in South America, the torture, the black sites, the invasions, the enforced poverty and starvation, the drone strikes, and the just non-stop lying, manipulation, and gaslighting. You literally rescue Nazis after World War II in Operation Paperclip. And then fast forward 70-something years, and you are funding, arming, and supporting literal Nazis in Ukraine. But you're the ones on the right side of history. What? The crimes are bad enough in and of themselves. But with the preaching, though? Okay. 2 planes were able to knock down 3 towers in New York on 9/11. Whatever. Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, but actually no. Whatever. And don't even get me started about ISIS. Whatever. Then you force the shutdown of the global economy, lock everyone in their homes, close the schools, shut businesses for a virus that we knew early on was only really dangerous for old people and people with pre-existing conditions. We knew that from the beginning. It's like the flu. Then you made everyone wear masks. Then you made everyone take a vaccine, neither one of which prevents transmission or infection. You blacklist everyone who said that maybe this was an overreaction, and anyone who factually said that the vaccines were essentially pointless, and blacklisted anyone who speculated that the virus might have leaked from your lab in China where you were doing research on that virus. And then now, in 2023, after you did what you did, you say, yeah, all of that was accurate. But it was China's fault. I mean, come on. No one believes you anymore. It's just too much. And then Ukraine and Russia, sanctions, deindustrialize Europe for the sake of what? Fighting for freedom in a country with a comedian dictator president who bans the church, prohibits opposition political parties, censors the media, conscripts civilians, and makes them fight under literal swastikas. That's how much contempt you have for the rest of the world. You think that the rest of the world population is just that stupid. It's just too much now. It's time for us to all stop pretending that the United States bears any resemblance whatsoever to its propaganda about itself. And that includes Americans. I mean, Joe Biden sided with BlackRock and corporate power against railroad workers to ban them from striking against unfair and unsafe working conditions. And now you have birds falling out of the sky in Ohio because of the chemical spill caused by the fact that in America, the voice of workers doesn't matter. Half of all Americans who use credit cards use them just to survive the cost of inflation. Something like 1/5 of all Americans can't afford to pay their electric bill. Yet the government has seemingly unlimited billions of dollars to hand over to weapons manufacturers to keep the flow of arms going into Ukraine. This abuser is not going to change. It's time to move on. Decouple from the US and the collective West, who have been accomplices with the United States throughout. They need to be isolated. The world needs to implement a strict policy of containment towards the United States and its minions in Europe. Honestly, the rise of the global South and the resurgence of the Muslim world represents a recovery of global sanity. And I think we're going to have at least a century of embarrassment, shame, resentment, and bewilderment as coming generations look back at the obsequiousness and the acquiescence with which the world endured the West's long rampage. And they will wonder, how did you ever use the terms Western and civilization in the same sentence? It's time to acknowledge that not only does the emperor have no clothes, but he is, as Malcolm X would say, a bloody-jawed wolf, and he is no emperor at all. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum.